and welcome to another edition of Trade Tuesday. Two things before we start. One, I just loved this outfit so much that I thought I'd wear it for a bunch of our videos. It just kind of seemed festive. But the other thing is we are going over something that I talked about a while back in comics, etc. We are going to be going over Predator versus Judge Dredd versus Aliens, Incubus, and other stories. Fun fact, did you know this has one story, which is Predator versus Judge Dredd, another one, which is Judge Dredd versus Aliens, also called Incubus, and no other stories. So the other stories doesn't really apply in this one. This is a trade that, when I found it, I knew that I needed to pick it up. It may not be the most eloquent and most thought-provoking comic you've ever read, but it's exactly what the title is. And if you read the title and you know these franchises, you know exactly what you're getting into on this one. So, the first story is Predator versus Judge Dredd. I don't think I need to tell you too much about what would happen in that scenario. A predator finds its way to Mega City 1, and the judges have to deal with it. And it actually deems the judges as the most worthy prey. So, shenanigans ensue, and there's lots of blood. This looks like it was a older comic, maybe later 80s, early 90s, but it meshes both of the franchises in very well together. Predator is very silent, but always present, and Judge Dredd is... Judge Dredd is Judge Dredd. My thing on Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd is from an era of comic books where it was the extreme era. You saw, like, everything being extreme. Venom kind of came up in that time, so he was kind of a product of the extreme 90s. Spawn, another one, a lot of Jeff Loeb art. But honestly, he's the only one who's actually aged well in the fact that he hasn't aged at all. All the other extreme titles feel like just so out of place and disjunctioning, and you're like, whoa, this is bizarre. One of my favorite comics, I need to find it again, I think I've talked about it before, is Punisher 2099, where it's just an entire panel of just totally cliched, like, it's so amazing. Like, they ask him, like, his address, and, like, he's like, where do you live? And he goes, on the edge. It's perfect. Perfect, perfect. But Judge Dredd hasn't had to change at all, and it still holds up, because the entire atmosphere of the Judge Dredd universe is one of extremes and of grittiness, of intensity, and it just meshes super well. Predator comics I haven't really been keeping up with. It's really that first block in this. It's pretty fun. It's a nice little, like, it's literally Predator versus Judge Dredd, and it's a fun little romp. The second half is the Judge Dredd versus Aliens, and that one is really interesting because the first part of that arc is actually a one-on-one, like the original Alien movie. Just, it's a lot more judges against the alien itself, but a lot of people die because they're not prepared, just like in the original, and I like that. I like that little motif, if you will. However, the second part of this arc is dealing more with the actual hive, and honestly, it's still pretty good. I haven't been one for, like, huge hive mind and, like, giant wars, like, oh, we have to fight them all off. I'm more of a survival horror person, so I enjoy the survival horror aspect of those stories. But honestly, as a whole, I think this trade stands up. If you enjoy, like, kind of cliched action tropes, if you don't really want to, like, put too much thought into the comic in the fact that it's kind of just a fun romp into an action universe, I think this is a great trade to pick up. It is, I believe, 20 bucks? Let's see. I lied, it's 30. To be honest, 30 may be too much for this trade. It is a hardcover, and it's very nice, and there's some extra tidbits towards the end, but honestly, it's not worth $30. Maybe 20. If you can get it for cheaper, especially in paperback, please do it. That would be your best bet. So, overall, Predator versus Judge Dredd versus Aliens, Incubus, and other stories, without the other stories, is going to get a rating of 6 out of 10. Because it could be so much better, could have so much more, but it doesn't. And I personally enjoyed it a lot, but I wouldn't recommend it at the price. It's just not enough. It's just not substantial enough. And unless you are like a die-hard fan of all 3 of these franchises, or like 2 out of 3 of them, it's just not worth really going out of your way. Now, if you're like me, and you love these franchises, you may not follow all of them, you may not read all the comics, you may not be all into the like expanded universes, but you understand what these universes are, and you aren't one of those people like, I thought Judge Dredd was going to be far more, more talking about, oh, this city is so corrupt, blah, blah, blah. It's action. It's amazing. This is a good comic to at least read. If you like to read and you want to pick it up, please do. So, 6 out of 10 for this trade. You should have more Trade Tuesdays that are going to be far more interesting, far more relevant than this. But yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Remember who you are, what you are. Don't cause any trouble out there in that world. And remember, if you're in a giant mega city and there's aliens with weird faces and acid blood attacking you, it's really just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to worry about. I mean, like poverty and just the judges and social inequalities, I'm assuming. Sucks. Toodles.